Thank you. Thanks so much. That's a lot to live up to. Stephanie, you better come up here real quick because I'm known as the guy that got the girl. Stephanie, come up here, my beautiful wife. And David, stand up. Are there any of the other children here? David, I want you right here. David, you stand up there. This is our baby that just came home 6 months ago from Bolivia, our youngest. And he's good looking because he has a beautiful mother.
Well, he looks like his dad.
And it was pretty fun because when I was in a singles ward and Tanner, my son, is Tanner here? No. He was the Elders Quorum president, and he introduced me to, when we had question and answer with the kids and training about dating, he said, listen to your dad because he's the one that got the girl. And my son Michael, our oldest, right here, walking down the stairs. Thanks for coming, Michael. This is going to be fun. What an honor to be with each of you. Hi, Sam. Michael's partner here. And get this, Sam was an assistant to his president in Brazil, and he was released as soon as his president met Michael to go train Michael. And it's been an impact to our family forever, Sam. Thank you. So glad you'd come, showing interest. This is fun. It really is. I have the most beautiful family in the world. I'm probably the wealthiest man that you'll ever hear from because I have the happiest family life. Anyone that's ever been to BYU, this is the product of BYU. I fooled Stephanie thinking I was smart just because I was here at school. We have Michael's little baby isn't here, Paxton, and we have one more that is added to two more grandsons in there in that picture that belong there. So I come from a big heritage of real estate. My grandfather, Franklin Paxton, was the biggest deeded landowner in the Four Corner States. And he assembled a huge ranch. During the Depression, he had cash and was smart enough to turn cows into cash, literally. He owned the livestock brokerage, which was downtown Salt Lake, right across from the most established building in Utah, the church office building. Right across the street was Haley Saunders and Paxton, where he became the lead partner there. But he bought and sold cattle. He sold cattle, literally had cash, to buy thousands and thousands of acres during the Depression and after the Depression for the property taxes, for like a quarter an acre. So he assembled this huge, there we go. This is our ranch, part of the ranch, the cabin I used to go to as a boy with my dad and my brothers, and we just had a wonderland of an experience being ranch boys. And we've learned to fix a lot of things, but Grandpa taught us, and he taught his son, and I teach my sons, the land is worth more than money. Dad used to take us for days. We'd go up on the ranch, and we would check on sheep herder camps and take them supplies. And as we would drive in his old pickup truck, he'd look at the vast land. He'd say, son, this is your inheritance. You never sell. We can lease the land. We can harvest crops off the land. The land is God's blessing to man. Be a landlord all of your days. I was raised that way, but unfortunately all relationships don't work out. My parents divorced. My stepdad wasn't a businessman. He was a great good man, but we had hard times. And so this was all taken away from me, and what my inheritance I was born into was gone. My dad wasn't living the gospel at the time. He lost it all. And so I had this shame secret that developed in me that if I couldn't become a man of property again, I didn't have self-worth in an aspect. And so that really motivated me. I really wanted to make my heritage proud and get into some of this stuff. My first experience in real estate as a young man and being hungry was working in St. George at the Red Mesa Motel for my grandmother. I started out doing that and spending summers with her. When I was I think the first time I was there, I was 12 years old. And I'd work hard. One time, I noticed a guy was watching me as I did the work on this thing. I used to fix the sprinklers and work on the property, everything that needed done. I had a step-grandfather that was crippled. He had arthritis, and he'd tell me how to fix a pipe and how to do some plumbing and hand me the tools. And I saw one man watching me, just observing me all day long, and he told me that he was a reporter from the Las Vegas Sun. And he wanted to interview me because he'd never seen a young man work so hard at 12 years old. And he said, what's your thing? And I said, well, I'm a farm boy from Idaho, and that's all we do is work. We have to take care of things or we can't eat. And he said, well, that's really interesting. And he said, well, where'd you learn this principle? I said, well, my favorite story is the little red hen that my mother would tell me, and you can see the old fable of all the farm animals that made fun of the hen that wanted to do the work. And she was gathering the seeds, and she was going to make to make bread in the end, and they were all too busy. One was spying on the other animals, and they never could do it. But when she baked the bread, you know, the parable of the story, they all smelled the aroma, and they all wanted to take part in the bread. And she said, I'm sorry, where were you when the work was to be done? But I learned this lesson from Grandma working at the Red Mesa Motel. He actually wrote this article, and he sent it to us. Brad Weeks, the little red hen that will be fabulously successful. And I think my mom still has that article. But I looked at that as a young man and thought, what is he talking about? But it really is the work ethic. You all have it because I know who you are. You're here. You know who I am because I'm here and asked to do a lecture series to teach you something about our profession. And it's really wonderful. So let's get the radar working for us. We're entrepreneurs. You heard a little bit. We had a lot of fun. We built 3 dance clubs. This is 10,000 feet. If you know where Stan's Drive-In is, over on 9th East, there's a commercial building. I think there's a call center or something there now, right across from where Gold's Gym is. But that whole place was a discotheque in the day. We had all the low voltage lighting. My brothers are geniuses. They were innovative and got started with this thing ahead of me. But the greatest fruit of this business is I met Stephanie at the discotheque we had at Rexburg, Idaho, that catered to the students at Ricks College. Back then, it was a dance club was the coolest thing in the world to do when you worked hard like I did and didn't plan a date night for the weekend. You go to the dance club. And we had a great time there. Our grand opening, we actually gave that new car away. We had Wolfman Jack. If any of you have seen the old movie American Graffiti, he was like the renowned 50s disc jockey of all time. And we had the Ohio Players. We were a disco band, this big grand opening. Business is fun. But I was in the car lot business at the same time. This lot still exists. This is where one of our stores was when I was in school. But the car business was so hard for me. I learned to trade, and I learned the principles you do about business. But the cars, if you didn't sell them quick, they'd go down. Why do cars go down? Somebody said it, right? Bam. Exactly. There's 2 kinds of assets. I understand this very well. We've been successful to assemble a real estate portfolio to be financially independent, but this is the main thing I can teach you, and it's so real. Most people, our son Tanner was telling me when he was at the business school in the finance program, that he was just mesmerized that professional athletes, after 5 years, they're broke, right? It's just statistically, more are broke than not after 5 years of playing in professional sports. But how many times do you see people when they get their first money and they've got a fancy car? You know, how many times do you see people with their first money buy a lavish home? In the market crashes, they get transferred to play in another city and they have to dump it and they lose millions. If you do that 3 or 4 times, you're done, right? But the appreciating assets, when I was your age, I slept on the floor in an apartment with friends and my brother before I got kicked out because they wouldn't tolerate the bum that didn't want to spend the money to pay rent. My chest of drawers was a box, and we'd put our clothes in there, and I would roll up, and anything I could do, I'd sleep, you know, under a carport if I could avoid paying rent because that was money I'd throw in the wind. I could never go back. For every dollar I invested, I wanted to get it $2 back was my model when I was younger. But I learned fast to save money, get the properties that are going to appreciate, right? And avoid putting your money where it depreciates. And as you get money and you get ahead, you'd better save. Read The Richest Man in Babylon. If you save 10%, the principles taught, the power of saving and the dynamics of investing now to be ready when you're an old guy like me. And so it is really fun stuff. Of course, the best investment I ever got was talking Stephanie into marrying me. She is a cheerleader. She's a builder, lifter, and beautiful. More beautiful on the inside. She is wonderful. But when we got married, I'd finished at BYU. We bought this home on Bowl Drive, right over where the old Word Perfect offices were, or who's there now? Amateur went in there, but the office park over there, this is 4,000 feet. I was 27 years old. She was 20. We married. I had this home paid for. And I'd bought and sold cars, and I'd bought and sold some income properties, and this home was paid for. I went to Stephanie and I said, Stephanie, we're in a great position. We had over 50 units of rentals. We had some German cars that were paid for. Our home was paid for. And I asked her, I said, Stephanie, do you want to just live the dream? Because we're going to live a few more years. We'll retire the debt on these income properties. We'll have income every month. We can retire now. I had a plan then. I understood it then. I can teach you now because I did it then, and I've maintained our estate. And it's been through 2 big downturns. Stephanie and I said, do you want to go for it? We can move to Arizona, where I thought was the most robust market to build and develop and make money, or what was your response?
Let's go.
She said, let's go. So we packed the bags and we got after it. The coolest thing is business is great. This is Stephanie's parents, Elder and Sister Hammond. He was in the first quorum of 70 for 18 years. And there are things more important than making money. Never jeopardize a relationship with a family member particularly, or I have never hired a contractor where I haven't paid them ahead of getting paid myself. Never cheat your brothers and cheat yourself out of your salvation, because there's your education at BYU. If Elder Hammond were here, he has a doctorate. He would tell you that the reason for your education is not so you can just make more money. What do you think it is? Right, give back. So the world thinks you're smart, so you can make a difference in the world. You know, who knows what you'll do to influence the world when you leave the BYU, and you're going to learn now, you're going to go out and earn, and you'll return. But through the meanwhile, with the badges you get, you're going to be entrusted, and people are going to know you're smart because you've earned the right to be respected. So that's just a huge part of everything we do. We've tried to raise a legacy with our family. Michael's here. There's President Souza. Michael's not in his white shirt, you can see right there. We went back after 18 months, and Sam is jealous that he didn't go with us, but we were invited to go with a former area president, and Michael was asked to go back and help train missionaries to be productive, because Sam Steele, his trainer, had trained him so well. How many times does that happen, that you go back to a mission and teach those kind of things? Tanner went to Korea. He still converses in Korean awfully well when we go to the restaurants and things. David was a Bolivian here. So it is really cool. So the things that matter the most, you want a happy family, never lose your focus. I've always done my home teaching, never missed a month. I've always paid a full tithing, and I know the source of my inspiration. And keep balancing your life, or you're going to be poor. Oh, but why are we here? What do you want me to teach you? Huh? I'm going to show. You want me to show you the money, right? Let's say it. Show me the money. Show me the money. Let's do it. Let's do it. We'll have some fun with this too. So you can be righteous. The Lord will take His cut, and it's all good, right? But making the money isn't where you get the best educations. Because I started out, I bought this home in South Provo, and I took a bath because I saw renters and people paying rent like you do, and I thought, how cool is that? I'm going to buy this house in South Provo from this hotshot developer. Dick Bastian was his name. And I'm going to rent it out to my roommates, my brothers that all work for us at the disco, and I'm going to make positive money on that every month. Guess what happened? We moved in, and I got a real fast education. It wasn't zoned. What does that mean? It wasn't zoned for multifamily or more than one family. It was single family zoning. What do you think happened? What? Nate? Well, we got kicked out, for starters. They got kicked out because we had neighbors telling us. We had all the cars. Real estate has all the police powers, we call them, and we learned them well. I studied real estate finance, real estate appraisal, real estate law at BYU. I took every course I could to learn all I could. But we got kicked out because we're violating zoning regulations. I ended up selling this thing, and I lost money on it. But I thought I needed to learn more. So the cool thing about this hard lesson, the most valuable investments I've made is we get residual, and we learn quick when we have a lot of pain, when you're a poor, humble college student. So I I looked at that, I finally sold it, and I think I lost about $7,000 on the thing in the day. And I wanted to get to know the developer better that did the subdivision, because I'd heard how I bought in because they were selling these homes like hotcakes. His name was Dick Bastian. I didn't know how to get in with Dick Bastian. I have students come to me, they said, Brad, you're really good at what you do. We love your lifestyle. We hear about all these benefits and things that you have in your life. Would you take me to lunch and share that with me? But does an executive want another meeting? Do you think that responds well? Did you learn that as missionaries? You have to find a seam, right, Nate? You find a seam of how to get in their life and what they're doing already. So I became very good friends with Gary Bastian, Dick's only son. And at a Sunday dinner, I asked him, I said, Dick, this is the guy that did the development that made all the money on the subdivision of the home that I lost on. He did Sherwood Hills up on the bench. Dick developed the subdivision where I live today in the river bottoms. This guy was the guru. I said, what are you doing this week? Because I'm not very good at real estate, and I still just keep thinking about it. I want to win. I lost. I want to win. And he said, I said, what are you getting up to where I could just go with you and help you? I'll carry your briefcase, whatever it takes. I just want to lighten your load. He said, well, I don't know. I'm going to Tooele to look at some land for a subdivision. I said, when are you leaving, and can I go? So I went with Dick. I rode with him. We rode across Tooele. I'll never forget. We stopped at a waterway there and watched some guys fish, because he's a country boy like me. And we connected. And he says, boy, this is so cool. You're interested in real estate. I hope Gary will show some interest. Will you invite him to come with us next time? And I got into this. I said, what did I do wrong? What can I do right? He says, well, there's a little thing that you learned a hard lesson about zoning. But guess what? He said, I developed that home for 20% less than you paid me for it. And I started asking him all these questions. Well, how do I buy land? And when we did the contract in the land in Tooele, I said, now, what do you have to do? How do you get that entitled? And he said, well, you have to get entitlements so you can build the homes you want to build on the land. I said, what does that mean? And so I took another class to learn more about it. But my hardships were my great fortunes, no question about it. And as I lost money, not only did it break my heart, not only did it stress me to stay awake and not sleep nights, I was prayerful. I prayed. I said, look, I served a great mission. I attend my meetings. Lord, please help me to meet my goals and to win. Because like Nacho says, I want to win, right? I don't, the luchadors had pounded me, right? I was done. So I'll tell you what, if you have the right partner and you're prayerful, I just had thoughts come to me that were not of my thinking, I promise you, and it'll happen for you too. I started thinking about it, and I found this cool little model here. I found this home on 19th over by our disco, and I saw that students were living there, and they weren't busted. Why? Because it's still the same over there today. They had the zoning where you could have a duplex, or you could have more than one unrelated party living in under the same roof. So I bought the house. I bought it for $50,000. So the main floor would rent for $500. My mortgage was probably a little bit more than that, or about at that, so it was a break even. A break even didn't make sense. I lost money before I wanted to make money, right? So anyway, I jackhammered. Alyssa's here. Her mother was with me. We were going to go everywhere Eastern Airlines can fly. She had found a deal where we go on vacation, just go on this trip and go all over the place and be real Mormon hippies and have some fun in the summer, right? So she came over she said, Brad, what do you need to do with this house? I'll help you finish it. And she actually came in work clothes. And I told her that the main floor worked out with the rents of $500, but the only way I could make that pencil was if I made a duplex out of it. What does that mean? What? Yeah, basement apartment. It actually had a 6-foot high ceiling, so I jackhammered it. Debbie would run and go get parts and things for me because I couldn't afford to pay anybody, whatever it was, $6-8 an hour back then. And I literally, with a few family members' help, I talked to people and learned how to plumb, learn how to do things. I made a duplex out of the basement pretty much by myself, and I was ready for that fall semester after I bought it. So I added a tenant in the bottom. The remodel, I spent $7,000 on parts and contributed labor, and the basement rent was $500. So I had 2 levels with the same square footage now for utility. The rent was was $1,000 a month with double rents. My mortgage payment was $500, so I made $500 a month positive cash flow. And the sales price, if you a 10 cap or 10% return, if you make $1,000 a month, 12, that's actually like $120,000 value, right? But it was $100,000 value of the home. I needed cash back then, so after a few years, I sold it to Wayne Tanner, that owns Action Title, and he talks to me today when I still see Wayne around. This, whatever, so 30 years ago, 30 plus. He's like, Brad, I feel so guilty because that little house you sold me, I sold that thing for like 200 grand. I feel guilty every time I see you. But isn't it cool that you can deal in something? I used to deal in cars. I'd be so nervous to get it sold from the time I bought it at the auction, from the time the NADA book depreciated 6 months later for less than I paid for it, right? So I was working in depreciating assets. Appreciating assets is so much fun because you create this revenue and pay yourself every day, and the next guy can have a good experience too, because inflation is something that's consistent, no question about it. This is really cool too. When we're in, and I started thinking about some of this inspired stuff. We did some innovative first round stuff. This is one for sure. You'll see these behind the, Albertsons used to be there, now it's the Walmart, right down on the diagonal across from the Chevy dealer and the Ford dealerships, that area there, you know where I'm at. These duplexes are still there, but I actually bought one duplex, and I knew this zoning thing, and Dick Bastian had mentored me, and I wanted to be the developer. I wanted to not only, I didn't want to make the 20% that he made when he sold me the home I lost money on. I wanted to just keep it and rent it and cash flow it, right, and create a cheaper basis. I wanted to create something for wholesale. So I did. I built this. My uncle DeMar Weeks was a contractor. I used him. I used another builder by the name of Nate Chappell that were general contractors, and I had them come in at a moderate fee and help me do this. So I built these things for $85,000, but the cool thing about it is I figured out another niche in the market. That was single bedrooms. Back then, all the apartments, everybody shared a bedroom, and that wasn't cool. So interest rates were 16, 17%. Do you think it's hard to do a deal now? Then it was next to impossible. We figured out, build these duplexes with 4 bedrooms on each side. I could get $200 a pop on each side. So times 4 on each side times 8, $1,200. And my mortgage payment on the $85,000 was $800. So I could make $400 a month cash flow when I was at school. In fact, I did it in another location off of 5th West and what was it, Stephanie? 5th South on the Provo River down there. But most of the students in our ward, our singles ward, paid rent to me because I built so many of these buildings. And Stephanie wasn't, the romance wasn't the magic click back then, but her sister Leslie one Sunday, she came to him. She came to me and she said, "You're liking this other girl, and I don't like that." And I said, "Well, why is that?" She said, "Because you're going to marry Stephanie." I go, "I am?" And this was like a turning point. I'm like, "This is great." So this investment worked out too. It worked out really well. So, and we did,
And all that cash you'd get from the renters, you would just stick it in your pocket, and you'd have cash sticking out like this big.
I'm glad she noticed. I didn't think it was working at the time. So we again, when I put that to Stephanie, I asked her a little too prematurely where she wanted to go. I found out the best real estate market. And real estate is the best investment. You can get a lot of people here. They'll give you a pitch. You look at it historically. I challenge you to look at it. Real estate is the best single investment your parents probably have ever made. What's the best single investment you think your parents would tell you they've ever made? What is it? They're number 1, number 2. The wife, then the children. What's number 3? They're home. They're home. If they don't have to understand the dynamics of any kind of investing. They're home from the time they got married and the time they retire. Their best return and their most secure asset is probably going to be in their home. So I thought about that. I thought, that's really cool. I need to own 30 homes. I need to get a rent check, positive cash flow every day of the month. I need to have, instead of having appreciation in one thing that can almost retire me, I'm going to have 30 of them. That was my goal when I was your age. We went to Arizona where the market was robust. It was the best market. It had gone up for 20 years without a hiccup. And so we looked at it. We went down there and I sold those apartments. We had over 50 of them. and we built a couple of homes on Kachina Circle with cash. And I thought at the time, we talked about the little red hen. If you want to get rich slow and earn your way, you got to be a farm boy work ethic or a farm girl. If I could save half the money on sheetrock, because most bids in construction are half labor, half materials, I would stay up nights. My wife would tell you, if I got a bid and I knew I could cut it in half by hanging the drywall, and I rented one of those little hoisters to lift the ceiling to the lid of sheetrock. That's hard to do, an 4x8 sheet of rock, and by yourself and put the screws in. I found a rental machine to jack it up. I would work all night and drink Dr. Pepper by day to the difference in a Mormon. You know the difference in a Mormon and a non-Mormon, don't you? Well, the temperature of their coffee, of course. So now there you go. So anyway, I'd say it again, but you can only drop those kind of innuendos at BYU once, right? Or twice you're gone. But a penny saved, a penny earned. So I had great equities in these homes. I sold these homes, and I was a dealer then, just like the car mentality. I hadn't quite gotten it about the residual, about keeping them. If I'd stayed with the one vehicle in Provo, we would have retired that debt. That one vehicle alone would have created a fabulous income forever, right? So, fun stuff. You got to have a model. Every business has to have a model. So what does a model mean to you? If you studied models, what does it mean to have a business model? Well, this was mine. I had to make 20. I love myself. I'm a needy, greedy farm boy that did the work to get the harvest, right? So my model's pretty simple. This is cost 80%. You can't do anything about that other than try to maybe get it to 75 by getting better bids or better comparable sales to justify more. But the 20% is what I want to own on every project I do. If I buy existing or if I build, I want a 10% return on my money, just like I talked about on the duplexes when I was your age. So if this is a $100,000 property and I spending $80,000 to build it, I want to make how much? I got to make $800 a month, 10%. That's actually a 12 cap because you times that times 12. But I want to make 10% on my money. That's called the cap rate. And I want to make 20% equity in everything that I do because there's only so much time in the day. And Stephanie and I, we met a couple before we left Provo. We went to see the Brockbank's house. He was a builder. Do you remember that? We knocked on the door. They had a beautiful home over by my parents. And I talked to him and I said, we want to see this home. We're a young couple. We want to live in a house like this someday. And he said, well, glad to meet you. And I said, Stephanie asked a dumb question like, is this really nice? And he said, yeah, it's nice. And I asked a farm boy question. I said, well, you're young, how'd you pay for it? And he said, well, it's not that hard. We built 5 of them. We made 20% every time we sell one. And this is our 5th home, so it's paid for. I said, Steph, do you want to do that? And what'd you say? And we did it. We started building our homes to do that. So when I was a youngster like you, I was broke. I mean, my stepdad was a pharmaceutical salesman, and he made about $6,000 a year. And I was moving pipe for Earl Hunter in Ryrie, Idaho. And I went to my dad, who's the bishop at the time, and I was like, I really need some help because we're walking back and forth to change this pipe. We're sleeping in a trailer to try to get some rest, and I really could cut this time down. It would help a ton. And he's like, let me get this straight. It sounds like it'd really help your business because I was asking him to help me get a motorcycle, right? And he said, it sounds like it'd really help your business. You'd cut down a lot of your hiking time when you're in the hot sun, going back and forth to change pipe twice a day. He said, but you've come to me. You need a motorcycle, and you've come to me. And he said, I'm confused by that. And he said, yeah, why? Why are you confused? My friend's parents buy him a motorcycle. He said, well, I'm just confused because you've come to me for a motorcycle. And he said, I don't even have one. Go out and get this. Go get it. Save your money. I was so mad at him. But I had to figure out ways to get money, right? So the bridge loans, it's private financing. Like if you go to the bank, you've got to have credit report. Has any of you tried to get a loan before? David, you tried to get a loan. Tell them what happened when you tried to get your first loan. Turn around and tell them. Give them the word.
I tried to get a loan to do an investment property, and the first time it turned me down. And I had to go back and apply for it, and it got approved actually just barely. So I'm now in debt.
But it's the old adage with the banks. The banks got the gold. It's the golden rule. They got the gold, so they make the rules, right, David? They have more things that they want to look at. David works at the MTC. He's only been home 6 months, and they're like, oh, we have to have 2 years, income statements. He says, well, guess what? They didn't pay me much as a missionary in Bolivia, right, Dave? So, but the private money, if you can get private money, they're all about the equity. It's a different ball game. They're all greedy people that want to get return on their money, and they've got too much money. So this is really a cool way to get the bridge loans. And how do you think how can you raise money in a bridge loan? Do you have any ideas? I'll tell you what worked for me when Stephanie and I first went down there. I went to, Les Nye was his name. He started a public a retail franchise that was a national franchise. It's called LaBelle's. None of you have heard of that. But he sold it out to I think like a Best Buy, bought him out. It's just like a Best Buy store. But anyway, he had all this money, and I went to him and I went to lunch with him, and I had this cool little plan here. And I wanted to make it real simple. My brothers, as we raise money for the discos and stuff like that, if you want to wear somebody out, just talk too much. My kids tell me I talk too much, and that's probably why it's fun to lecture for me. But he said, just keep it simple. You're going to lose them. Get it real simple. So I went to Leslie and I said, look, would you be interested in giving me a loan? Because I don't have much money. I've built these homes, but I'm out of cash. And I want to do it. I've learned it. I lost money. I've learned hard lessons, and I've made money on these homes on Conchina Circle. But I want to borrow money from you. But the bottom line is, investors are always worried. They're worried about losing. They want to get their money back, right? Like, what's the number one principle? The smartest, the richest man in the world. It's protect the principal, right? They want to get their money back. So I'd go to them and say, look, would you be interested, Leslie, if the downside, in other words, if I fail to tell you, or fail to do what I tell you I'm going to do, if I fail at that, that's the downside. If you actually make more money, if I don't do what I say I'm going to do, than if I do what I say I'm going to do, would you be interested in an investment like that? He's like, let me get this straight. So you want to borrow money from me at 10%. See if I put it on. I did, yeah. I promised him 10% interest and borrowing, I think on this thing, my model here. So, okay, there you go. Cost was $80,000. 10% interest was $670. So I said, the upside is I do everything you're telling me to do by making these payments every month. You're going to get 10% on your money. But heaven forbid, what if I get run over by a truck? Or what if I just decide I don't want to work anymore? And he controls when he gives me money as the construction progresses. So I would make him real comfortable about that. But what if I don't do what I say I'm going to do and you get the property back? You have to foreclose on me. You spend maybe $5,000 on a foreclosure and you get the property back. Which would you rather have? Would you rather have the 10% interest or rather get the property back and have a $15,000 equity like my model? Because again, I love Brad. I'm going to work really hard to protect that equity because I want to make the 15 grand, the 20%. That's my profit. Or if I get a long-term loan and pay you off, I could rent it for $1,000. So the downside is, Mr. Investor, the downside is the upside. That means if I don't make the payments and pay you this $670 every month, and I default and you foreclose the property, and you become a landlord, and you rent the property, you're going to be renting it for $1,000 a month. So it's a no-brainer to get $330 more, right? So, or if I do what I say I'm going to do, you're going to get 10%. And I asked him, I said, by the way, what are you making on your interest accounts? Right now, it's frankly less than 1% is what rich people get in the bank right now. So I put this together, and Les looked at that. He asked a couple of questions. And so let's get this straight. If I foreclose, you don't make the payment, I'm out 80, it's going to cost me $5,000 to foreclose, so I can sell this thing pretty easily because these entry-level homes are hotter than a $2 pistol. I'm going to make $15,000 if you don't do what you say you're going to do. But if you do what you say you're going to do, I'm going to get 10% interest on my money. When right now he's getting about 3%. I said, that's right. And he said to me, I'll never forget, where I was sitting at the Iowa Cafe in Mesa, Arizona, when he said, well, how about we start out with 10 of these? I said, well, that's all right, let's do it. And then like 3 months later, after we had the projects going and I'd done everything I told him I would do, every time he gave me a draw to pay the bills, I'd show him my receipts, I'd show him a lien waiver to prove that I was paying the bills, to keep him in the driver's seat, to make sure I wasn't getting ahead of the game, getting more cash than I was building a house, dollar for dollar and brick for brick, right? But the next time, after a few months of this, he met me at the Iowa Cafe again. He loved to meet there and talk shop. He had 3 friends with him. 3 friends. So Les had 10 homes with me, and the 3 friends came, and they said, we want to have some fun. So we put our cash to work, get us 10%. And you know what? We like the downside is the upside. Brad, why don't you just build these things and not sell them and not make your payments, because we'd much rather own the homes and the assets than have the 10% on our money. But you choose, Brad. 10% is fine. So I think at that time we had the biggest private fund that I was aware of at the time. And we quickly surfaced of being very prospering builders. But this due diligence I want to say a word about too. It's so important. But you get into this kind of stuff, do the math, do your homework. You got to look from what's below the surface before you buy. Buyer beware. It'll make you smart. Penny saved is penny earned again. This is a great thing. Theory is huge. How many understand theory in business? What? Okay, perfect. How many understand theory? What is theory? Theory means historically to look back and see what's happened in history. So to understand this with real estate, learn how to read markets through historic patterns. So in 1989, the savings and loan crisis, a lot of you were just newborns then, was quite a time. The S&L crisis, the savings and loans got way too much real estate, the market crashed. We bought a lot of land, and because I was a builder, the smart guys bought buildings, and so I saw them, their buildings were actually better buys, because when you buy a home, if a home costs $200,000 to build and you buy it for under $100,000, you probably get some of the lot free and some of the building is free. But when you buy the land can come back to market value, but there's still, you're only going to make a limited value, right? Because you're just going to own land at the end of the day. So when 2008 came around, the theory is we did the wrong thing. In the first crisis and downturn, I've lived through 2 of them, we bought land instead of sticks and bricks, right? So the second one, we were pretty smart. We bought buildings for less than replacement cost. I bought homes that I built in subdivisions that I spent $200,000 building, I bought for $70,000, it's $50,000. That was my cost, was $200,000. So when the market came back, as soon as replacement cost came to be, I'd made, $130,000 a unit just waiting 2 or 3 years for the market to come back. So we knew what to do through theory. When you see theory and stuff is on sale, you'd better learn to act. And I'll teach you another principle. This is fun stuff. How to steal and not go to jail. So look, you buy on bad news, and you take advantage of these kind of things, because banks, they need to sell their properties. And a lot of times before a quarter end, they're going to have to dump inventory, and they're going to do it in a fast and furious way. And they can write it down. And a lot of times they may get government bailouts when you buy these kind of things. So we love to buy properties in the downturns. I like to buy them on sale, and I'll wait. In good times, you just have to create and do something like that. So this is how banks write things down. Foreclosures, banks for real estate own. You can buy a note that a bank owns that they've they want to sell because the asset's not paying anymore. The bank-owned properties, after they foreclose and they own inventory, banks are in the business of lending money, not lending houses. So they'll make deals with that. And short sales. These are terms, they're a whole nother lecture. But that's how banks write down principles, and you can rob banks honestly and have the bank president thank you at the end of the day. The boys have had some fun times with storage units. We don't have a lot of time there, but my boys are active and still investing in real estate. They've done it on their own. Michael, my son, has had a couple of homes free and clear when we were buying and selling homes in Arizona from trustee sales. The boys have bought this storage complex in Kentucky, and they're turning around. They'll bring it to stabilization. It'll be worth twice what they paid for it within a year. In good times, how do you create in good times? You have to create. No, banks aren't giving anything away in good times. Right now in Provo, are these good times in real estate? Very good times, right? So in good times, nobody's giving anything away. You might pay retail for the ground, but you remember my model, you build a home for 20% less than it'll sell for retail, and you can create equities for really cool stuff. My brother's a super talented architect. I'm a pretty good builder. That's our personal home there. I married the princess, so I had to build her the castle. We've done some cool stuff. We were in Rancho Santa Fe in 1992. That's the Beverly Hills of Southern California. We had the best new elevation of the year from the Rancho Santa Fe Homeowners Association. My brother Bruce was the architect here, but we created some cool stuff. This in San Diego, we built several spec homes. You can see our oldest, Michael. Where were you there, Michael? Probably 6. But we had a lot of fun. All these projects in California and other areas where we've seen good markets to build. Deer Valley, Park City, we've done a lot of spec homes. You don't match them to beat them, you have to be better, right? So we got really good at details in custom homes. We got good at that. These are some more of our Scottsdale, our subdivisions. We were Builder of the Year in that corridor of Scottsdale in 1989 for Olympic Homes. And this is one I really wanted to get to because I was flipping and grabbing cash, but if I were your age, and the thing I should have focused on more is what I've done the last few years, is create residual income properties rather than grab a fish. If you teach a man, you can feed him, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, you teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Keep the cash cows coming home. You can do the same principles with my model, creating income properties, and keep those cows, cash cows, coming in every day. It's magical. You get the right properties and you never sell them. Those duplexes I had in Provo, I should have never sold them. Anything that's yielding a return, you just keep them. And you're all studying to be professionals, but unless you're at your practice, I don't care if you're a surgeon, what you're doing, you're going to have to be busy, engaged, doing your job to get paid. You can't go to Cabo with Stephanie and I last week because you'll have to be working to get paid. Our properties yield properties every second of the day. This is what's cool. The amount you pay for the property, Stephanie Myers inspired me a little too late in my career, the BYU grad that wrote this great series. But the truth is, my cost of my buildings, will it go up what I paid for a property or what I spent to build it? They always stay the same. But incomes go up, and the incomes last forever. So literally, I could be a vampire because rents go up, and my basis stays the same. So every day you have rents forever and ever. It's the most beautiful business in the world. And the assets go up with appreciation. You want the best hedge on inflation? Own real estate, sticks and bricks. They'll go up with it. So it's just, that's a little spooky pick, isn't it? So anyway, I will, in room 710 is where we go to after this if you want question and answer. How much time do we have now? Are we done? Any questions in 2 minutes? It's so great. The Lord's on your side. Your students at Brigham Young University. I have a testimony of our Savior. I have a testimony of what this campus does. It's so sacred that you're all here to have this wonderful opportunity. Any questions in 1 minute? Did I lose you? What? Okay, no questions. Yeah, we did. Hey, thanks.